from IDDA. You want to step up and give us your name and where you're from? And
thank you. Good morning.
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 Just bring you up to date on a few things that we're looking at. First of all, I mentioned the our annual conference. That's always in December. We traditionally have held that meeting right here in Fort Dodge. That is, a location that seems to work out well for our membership. We have a board of directors meeting tomorrow, as a matter of fact, and we'll be discussing, if we want to stay at the same location for this calendar year or not. The hotel has gone through some changes in terms of how they host conferences, and the very large, if you're familiar with the hotel, as you probably are, the very large room in the back is now going to be used for other purposes. So they've got us moved into a smaller room, which is adequate, but it's not ideal. So we're going to talk about it as a board of directors tomorrow and see if they want to stay in that facility, or we do have some interest from other sites that are potentially could host us. So we'll see what our board wants to do. It'd be strange for me to move from that facility because that's where we've held these meetings for as long as I've been an executive director here, which is 20 years plus. So it would be strange to move to another facility, but sometimes change is good. So we'll see what happens. We will be holding a summer meeting this year, something we started several years ago for our drainage administrators. That is a sort of an interesting process. How this started was I had a drainage administrator come to me and said, the best meeting that I go to each year is the annual meeting where I can sit with my counterparts and just discuss what's going on in each of our counties on drainage and how we deal with it. Why don't we do that twice a year? I thought, oh, well, that's a good idea. So we started holding summer meetings. If we're going to go ahead and hold one this year, this will be the fourth one. And we don't ever have an agenda. It is just, we set a time and place and say, we're going to start at 9 o'clock and we're going to go till noon. And it'll be myself and Mona Bond, who's our lobbyist, and Doug Strike, who is our attorney. And I have to admit that I think the reason we get most people coming is not myself, but because Doug is there as our legal counsel, so they can get legal questions answered. And we just have an open discussion for 3 hours. And I was concerned at first, number one, that nobody would show up. Well, I was wrong on that. My second thought was, how in God's name were we going to fill 3 hours? And I think now we could probably go to 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon and still have items to talk about. So that has worked out really well. Talk briefly about the legislature. We're back in session now. We've got, as an association, I just counted before I came in, there's right now about 30 pieces of legislation that we're watching. Doug, who's our legal counsel, is also a part-time lobbyist, and we have another part-time lobbyist that monitors the process. So we're very active in the legislature. We keep very close track of what's going on. I don't see anything out there right now from a drainage perspective that is overly concerning to me, but that's not to say it can't happen. So, we're there every day, watching what's going on. And if we need to have input into policy decisions the legislature is making, we will certainly do so. One thing that I'll mention, when IDDA sends out our dues notices, we also have an optional part, which is for our litigation fund. And the good thing about that is that we have an existing fund of money that is in place that is solely for the purpose of litigation, that is there if we need it. And the reason I mention that is we had a situation that came up this year. We were approached by an attorney. Our attorney was approached by another attorney who represented a county that had been involved in a drainage dispute with a railroad. And the case had gone to district court, and the railroad, sort of make a long story short, the railroad was citing some federal legislation that passed back in the 80s, and basically was claiming that that legislation made them exempt from paying any kind of local assessment, including a drainage assessment. So they were basically saying, we don't have to pay drainage assessments for repairs or improvements. And the district court found on their behalf. And the attorney came to us and said, I'm going to appeal this. I'm going to ask the Supreme Court to take this up. We would like IDDA's help. Do anything you can to support us. The first thing is you've got to get the court to pick up the case. And that's pretty rare. What I'm told by our attorney is Supreme Court picks up about less than 15% of the cases that they're asked to hear. So the first hurdle is to get them to hear the case. And secondly, if you get them to hear the case, obviously, is to get a reversal of the district court decision. So the good news is the Supreme Court did decide to pick up the case. And generally speaking, without even getting into a hearing, that tends to be good news, because, the reality is you don't think that a court that's only hearing 10% of its cases is picking up a case to pat a district court on the back and say, good job. They're probably picking up the case because they see some issues that need to be resolved. So we got a case picked up by the Supreme Court. Our attorney filed a front of the court brief in support of the county. So we brought the weight of all of the drainage districts in our membership behind this one county in the dispute with the railroad. Filed a front of the court brief. The case was heard in September. I actually went to the hearing because I'm sort of a junkie that way. I find the hearings fascinating. You can watch them on TV, but it's not the same. I like to get the lay of the land and feel what's going on in the room and see what justices who aren't asking questions, what their facial expressions are when arguments are being made, sort of get the feel of the room. And I guess my impression was, coming out of the hearing, that the justices were more questioning or more in doubt about the railroad side of thing than they were the county side of things, just the tenor of the questions and the way things were proceeding. So I felt 60% good coming out of the hearing, but as I've been told, predicting court decisions is a fool's game. So I just said, we'll wait and see what happens. And Supreme Court came out and issued their decision late last year, and basically found on behalf of the county and said that the railroad company did have to pay the drainage assessments. This is the second time that we've had a railroad dispute go to the Iowa Supreme Court. IDDA has been involved in both those cases. The other one was in Calhoun County several years ago. IDDA has been involved in both. We filed front of the court briefs in both, and we've won both. So I can't sit here and say we won because IDDA was involved, but I can tell you on this particular case, you know, the county lost at the district court level. IDDA did become involved, and I think with our support, we were able to get the case turned around. That's why it's so important to have that legal fund. I see this going on in other states. I've got a counterpart in Illinois, who represents drainage districts in Illinois, and they had a legal case come up, and they had no legal defense fund, and she had to go to her board and get special authorization to raise money, and it was a very cumbersome process for them to get involved. And for me, it's just to go to the board and say, this is a big deal case, we need to get involved, and they say yes. In this particular issue, this was a county that was not an IDDA member, which is why I think why we didn't know about it at the district court level. Normally in that situation for a non-member, somebody came to us and said they're asking financial help. We would say, frankly, no. If you don't choose to support the organization, we're not going to choose to support you. But in this particular situation, the board felt that the precedent that could be established was such that it was important for us to be involved regardless of where the county was on IDDA membership, and went ahead and gave the approval to get involved, and we were able to get the course turned around. I am going to have a discussion with that county about becoming an IDDA member. They've never been IDDA members. I don't know why, but we'll see what we can find out and hopefully get them into the fold. So that was a big victory for us. And again, I think speaks to the importance of having that fund that we can draw on if we need to. So with that, I'll be happy to respond to questions.
First of all, that was quite the story. And I'm glad you said that you were going to talk to them about joining IDDA, because that was going to be my next question. I would be remiss in not telling you that our Convention and Visitors Bureau, Visit Fort Dodge, is really great with our hotels and convention space. So if you need a contact there, I'm happy to get you their information if you're looking at a spot.
I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. That's all I got.
The railroad was claiming federal law. Was this going to be appealed through the?
Yeah, there was federal legislation that passed back in the 80s, and I don't remember what the reference was, but they claimed that law legislation gave them immunity, and they were preempted from being charged any kind of a local assessment, not just drainage assessment, but any kind of a local. And you know, the railroads keep trying.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to keep chipping at it. I'll probably, you know, if I'm still around a few years from now, I'll be back here talking about another railroad case. They keep trying to find creative ways not to pay drainage assessments.
Thank you for coming. Do you have anything else?
I remember emailing you when I saw the Supreme Court case come back, so.
Pardon me?
I emailed you when I saw that, because I
Yeah,
track all
that's
the
right.
cases that come
Remember
out.
Yeah, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting because I was on the road, and our attorney called me, texted me, and said, bad news, we lost. And, you know, losing's part of the game. And I thought, well, okay. So I got home and I dug the case out and I started reading the opinion, and, you know, any Supreme Court opinion is 20 plus pages, and you always go to the last page where they
Yeah.
be it affirmed or be it resolved, whatever. And I called Doug back. I said, Doug, I think we won this case. Can you verify for me? And he goes, oh my God, I looked at the lower court case. I was wrong. You're right. We did.
Ah, what a
So,
roller coaster.
Defeat turned into victory overnight.
Any other questions?
Thank you all.
Appreciate you,
Good to
sir.
see
Thank
you
you.
all.
Thank you, sir. Good to see you.
Right. I've got 9:20. We'll go ahead and get started with today's meeting. This will be a joint meeting for District 12 Webster, 38 Calhoun. Supervisors acting as trustees for Drainage District number 12 Webster, 38 Calhoun will meet for the purpose of accepting and placing on file a petition for a ditch cleanout and appoint an engineer in said district. First item up for business is to call a meeting to order. Maybe before we do that, I should have done a roll call. Let's
Yeah.
do that.
Let's do that.
Sometimes I get ahead of myself. We'll do roll call. I saw Dave's on there. We'll start with roll call in Webster, and then Calhoun, if you want to let us know who you guys have there.
Bob Fode, Webster.
John Cochran, Webster.
Austin Hike, Webster.
Nikki Conrad, Webster.
Cassandra Plaguey, Webster County Drainage Clerk.
We got from Calhoun.
Hello, this is Brian Bloom, drainage engineer for Calhoun County.
Serving on the agenda. Calhoun, here we have Corey Ridgely, Dave George, and Scott Jacobs. Yep,
Oh.
mine's off.
I hear that right?
So who all we have for Calhoun supervisors then?
Yes, everyone's here.
All right.
Do you want me to turn my volume up?
All right, I'll get started. First order up for business. I won't read the whole paragraph there again. First order is to call this meeting to order. Next, I would ask that we appoint a chair.
Appoint Austin Hike as the chair.
I need,
I'll second that, George.
motion by Bob Thode, second by David George. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
All ayes Webster.
All eyes in Calhoun.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next, I would seek to accept and place on file a petition for a ditch cleanout slash reclassification.
So moved, Cochran, Webster.
I'll second, George.
Motion Supervisor Cochran, second by Supervisor George. Questions or comments on the petition for the ditch cleanout?
I just got one question here. This is Jacobs. When you're saying a ditch clean out on the petition, it said an improvement. Are we doing a clean out or are we doing an improvement?
Yeah, and a clean out.
So it's just a repair?
It says clean out and reclassification. It doesn't say. So what's the word you used?
Repair. On a repair.
The petition on it says that it's an improvement.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's what it's saying. It's showing improvement and reclassification on the north half of section 16 in Roland Township, south and west. Ditch in section 21, Roland Township, Joint Drainage District 12.
So we kind of had this issue several years ago there by Farnhamville, where we went ahead, we were told that we had a petition, which we see we have one here. We went with it and they did that clean out. It was a little less than $1 million. And then they said that there are sand seams in there, and then that was going to be like another $500,000 or $600,000 to put riprap in there. When we got all said and done, the farmer stood up and said, "Hey, I only asked for a repair for like riprap on a ditch bank, and it was only $20,000. He said, "That's not done. Can we still have that done?" So all he asked for was a repair on that, and we went ahead and basically did an improvement. So that's why I'm just kind of asking, if he's asking for an improvement, is that what he wants, or is Richard Stark actually only asking for a clean out?
I don't have him in here. Have you talked to him?
I have not.
Yeah, because the way the petition's written is it's an improvement and reclassification.
It seems like we
If I
need to
may.
clarify that before we make any motion here or approve anything, because there's a big price difference between the two. Possibly.
If I might, you could also have your motion state repair or improvement. And that would give the engineer that you appoint the flexibility they need to not only call the petitioners and find out what's wanted, but also, you know, provide more information in their engineer's report so that the landowners could, you know, get a feel for, okay, here's what it's going to take to repair the project or repair what's wrong. Here's what it would be to improve it. And then they can give you guys as trustees the, you know, okay, let's go ahead and improve this thing. Let's make it a little bit better than just repairing it, because the costs are, you know, enough that that's the direction we want to go. Just have it open so that your motion gives that engineer the option of doing either repair or improvement.
But Brian, we also had that one with there in Pocahontas, that the engineer went ahead and decided that he wanted to put in a bunch of new tile to the north. That one was going to be about $2 million. We said no, because he only asked for a clean out, and the farmer stood up and said, thank you, that's all I want. And the engineer went ahead and spent all that extra money on the improvement that wasn't needed.
Okay.
That's why
So
my
you're-
biggest thing, it's their money. I want to make sure that we're doing what they want. They want an improvement, so be it.
Okay. So you're wanting to be able to confine this to a smaller view if that's what the landowner is petitioning for. You do not want it open to an improvement if that's not what the petitioner wants, correct?
Yes, that's my point of view, because it's
Okay.
their money. It's not our money. So they should
Okay.
get what they want.
So at this point, then I would suggest that, you know, the drainage clerk make contact with the petitioner and have it be a clear definition of repair or improvements before we, you know, accept the petition.
Okay. I've got, real quick, if you finish with that thought, I've got an individual here that would like to have a few words related to this. So you just come up real quick and state your name and where you're from.
Yeah, my name's Dan Hansen. Actually, I live in Webster County, Roland Township, Section 16 in DD 12's district. And I had heard about this meeting, and we are very uneducated about what goes forward from here. And the name already came up of Richard Stark as the one that had petitioned the permit deal there. And we have a few questions, and I don't know how far this goes along with your approval, how many more opportunities we'll have to yay or nay, because it's a real complicated situation and it's classified down into a certain area. So basically, our landlords and us are going to be paying for a pretty good share of what that entails, even though if it doesn't go through, the work that McClure or whoever engineering you have does that, does the county pay for that, or is that assessed whether or not the program passes or goes through or not? Is that paid by the landowner still?
That would be all through the district, yeah.
through the district, whether we want it or not, we're still going to have to pay for the study, the information,
Correct.
the maps and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so, well, I'm new to this and, don't care to be in this position right now, but I appreciate the time. And so when you guys make a motion today, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to do it. There's a lot more coming down the road yet that we can listen to, we can debate, we can talk about and, go forward from there.
Yeah, so right now, what's up is to accept and place on file the petition. We're just trying to make sure we understand what the petition is asking for. If it's an improvement, if, what it actually entails in it.
Yeah, my main concern was, and the name was already mentioned, who had submitted that, because everybody that farms in that area would not have requested that. So, sorry, Nikki. All right.
Brian, you can tell me if I'm wrong on this, but as soon as we accept the petition, we assign it to an engineer. Then it's up to the engineer. If the engineer says it needs to be fixed and cleaned out, we have to proceed forward with that, right?
Correct. At this moment, you've got a petition that you need to accept that you have received. And yes, you want a little bit more definition on that petition, and I think that is warranted in this situation. So that's step number one. Step number two is the engineer that you appoint will have to do, at the minimum, a letter report. And that could be, just a single page. If, there isn't anything that warrants repair, it can be very, very quick. Typically, that's not the case. Typically, you end up with something that needs to be done in terms of a repair. So once the engineer has stated repairs necessary, then the board has to move forward with something to to address what was the problems. It doesn't have to be completely everything that the engineer lays out, but if the engineer states that you have, let's just say, a unstable bank in section 16 of Roland, you're going to have to do something to try and stabilize that bank. And that would be a you shall repair. We have to keep these things in working, functioning order. So that's a must. If the engineer comes forward and says an improvement would be recommended, now the landowners have the right of remonstrance. And that's the process that you go through in order to get enough votes to actually stop the improvement project. So the only thing that really gets, to the point of you shall do something is if there's a repair recommended.
But my understanding is too, that this is just plan A to get the dredge ditch ready, because plan B is to put a new county main in. And so, because he's got 240 acres north of us that needs drainage, and that's the only place that it can go. So, I'm not concerned. Yeah, I understand the engineer needs to see if the creek banks and all that are in good shape, which they probably are, but that's just the beginning of what's yet to come. So I understand that. I appreciate that definition too. So anyway, thanks for your time. I'll go sit down.
Stan. So what I'm hearing is we need to have a motion that first off, gives the engineer permission to go to the petitioner and ask for clarification on whether it is an improvement or a repair, correct?
I have a motion on the floor right now.
Right, but I mean,
So
Yeah.
Bob, do you want to amend your motion?
That was me that made the motion. Yes, I would love to amend the motion. This is John Cochran.
Sorry, John.
So what's the amended motion then? Language.
Why
for it.
don't I withdraw my motion so someone who has a clearer idea as to how they want to word this can word it? So I'll withdraw my motion.
Calhoun withdraw their second then?
Yes.
Brian, what do you recommend the wording should be for this motion? Based on our discussion.
Based on the discussion, I would recommend that the joint board consider directing either the engineer that you will appoint or the drainage clerk to contact the petitioner in order to get clarification on clean out, repair, or improvement for joint drain 12 and 38. If I have that number right. I'm sorry if I don't have that right.
If I can make a comment here, I agree with what you're saying. However, I think one of the concerns that Mr. Hanson has is that we're going to be paying an engineer to ask those questions instead of going forward. Could we just have the drainage clerk specify specifically what it is that they're looking for and what we need to do, and then go forward with the engineer from that?
Which is, why I stated it as engineer or drainage clerk for you, so that if you wanted the clerk to do the call, you could direct the clerk. And like you said, that way that would be internal to the process.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion to direct the Webster County Drainage Clerk to contact the petitioner to clarify whether this is a clean out, repair, or improvement.
This is Scott Jacobs. I'll second that.
Motion by Supervisor Conrad, second by Supervisor Jacobs. Any questions or comments on that?
The only comment I have is I'm assuming this is a tenant that sent the petition to Richard Stark is Daryl Hay. So is that another guy I should be contacting?
They farm together.
Okay.
It's always a good idea to get as much information as possible from as many people as possible. However, the board should be very aware of who the landowner is. That is who the code is going to tie the petition to. The tenant, if they disagree with what the landowner wants, it's the landowners that we have to listen to in this case, in this situation.
Any other questions or comments on the motion? So as I understand it with this, and effectively our next item, we're going to have to table that until the next meeting. If I understand that correctly. So just making sure I'm all in order here. So no, I think that works. So if there are no other questions or comments on that, to have the clerk reach out with the rest of the motion. If there's no other questions or comments with that, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. So all ayes, Webster.
All ayes, Calhoun.
Okay. Motion carries.
Sure, I'll make the motion that we table the rest of the joint drainage number 12 Webster 38 Calhoun till the next meeting in 2 weeks.
We'll table our next item.
Table the next item for 2 weeks.
Okay. Motion from Supervisor Thode,
I'll second it, George.
second by George. Any questions or comments on the motion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 All ayes Webster.
All eyes Calhoun.
Motion passes. Next, I would seek a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Cochran.
Ridgely.
Seconded by Corey Ridgely.
Motion by Cochran, second by Ridgely. Any other questions or comments before we adjourn? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those same sign. All ayes Webster.
All eyes Calhoun.
Thank you, everybody. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, Calhoun.
Thank you.